Hey guys, welcome to the fourth video of my Uno card game tutorial, and in this video we're going to be making the game class. So the first thing we're going to do is declare this class, this game class, and we're going to create some variables of the class. So we're going to make a private int current player. We're going to create a string array of player IDs, and then the game needs a deck, so we're gonna use the Uno deck that we created in the previous video. And we are also going to make an array list of Uno cards. Stockpile. So this current player is just going to be whoever's turn it is, and it's just going to keep track for that player. The player IDs is going to be like when you put in the names of all the player, this is going to be an array, a string array of the names of the players. This Uno deck is just the deck that the players are playing with. The private array list of an array list of Uno cards, we have to make an array list of an array list because every particular player's hand is an array list of Uno cards, and we're keeping track of every player's hands, so we made an array list of player hands. So this player hand is actually all of the players' hands, and then we made a stockpile for when you put down your cards. And the last thing that we're going to do is create a private Uno card color, valid color, and a private Uno card value, valid value. We're going to save this, game.java, and desktop. So now we also need a game direction. In this game direction, it's just going to be an Uno, like you're playing either clockwise or counterclockwise, or depending on the players, you're going back and forth. But let's say you're playing with 3 or 4 players. If someone hits a reverse card, then the game direction changes. So we just have a variable to keep track of that. So now we're going to make the constructor, and every game to start it needs the player IDs. So now we're just going to initialize our variables, and we're going to shuffle the deck, and we're going to initialize stockpile to a new array list of Uno cards. And then we're going to take the player IDs, we're going to put them into our class variable player IDs, those 2. So this, whatever we give the game, the player names that we put in, is going to be put into our game class, player IDs. And now we're going to set the current player to 0, and then we're going to make the game direction equal to false. So the false game direction is just the standard game direction. And then, yeah, we're going to fill this player hand with a new array list of array list. And there we go. Oh, no, not that. Alright, there we go. The next thing that we're going to do is fill up each hand with Uno cards. So we're going to make a for loop to do this for each player. And we're just going to say array list Uno card and is a new array list. Then we're just going to add the hand. So to explain what I did here, we created a hand of Uno cards, which is a new array list of Uno cards, and we filled it from our deck. So from our deck variable, so I'm going to highlight this. So from our deck variable, from the Uno deck class we created earlier, we are drawing 7 cards, and we are getting that as an array, because this is going to return an array. And then we are turning it into a list because we are putting this into an array list of Uno cards. And then we are just creating a hand of 7 cards. So then once we have that hand of 7 cards, we are adding that hand to our player hand variable, which is all of every player's cards. So this player hand is actually keeping track of every player hand from all the different players in the game. The next method we're going to make is our start method. So this is a void method, and it just takes in the game. So the first thing we need is an Uno card, and we're just going to draw a card. So that's the first thing you do when you start an Uno. And the valid color, so this valid color is pretty much just what is the color that can be played. Like what color can be played in Uno. So if someone put down a blue 1, the valid color is blue. So how do we figure out what that is? So this card, it could be any card, but let's say it's a blue 1. We're getting the color of this card, and the valid color is now blue. And then we have to do that for the value as well, because they could put down a red 1 or they could put down a blue 3, as long as one of either the color or the value matches. So valid value equals card dot get color, get value. And now for our next thing is, alright, what about the specialty cards? So now we have to do special cases for the specialty cards like the wild draw 4, and the draw 2 cards. So we'll say something like if card dot get value is equal to Uno card dot value dot wild, and we'll say we're going to start the game over, because we don't want the first card to be a wild card. If we're starting the game, we do not want the first card to be a wild card, so we're just going to start the game. And then if the card value is a Uno card, if it's a wild card or wild 4, or if it is a draw 2, then we're going to do the same thing. And for the final thing is if the card, if it's a skip card, we're going to do this. Oops, skip. So if the first card is a skip, then the first player is just going to be skipped. So we're actually going to write a message that's just going to show that the first player was skipped. So we're going to create a JLabel, message equals new JLabel, and then we're just going to get the current player from our player IDs. I'm going to say that player was skipped. And then we're going to set the font Arial, and let's just say bold, and 48. So hope you'll be able to see it. And we have to create a new font to do this. So new font. Alright, there we go. And now we're going to show the message with jOptionPane.showMessage dialog. I don't remember why this has to be null, but this just has to be null, and then this is just going to display the message. So now the next thing we have to do is say, okay, if the game, so now we have to set the actual game direction. So if the game direction is already false, so this is the standard game direction. So if the game direction is false, the current player is going to be the current player +1 modded by player IDs.length. And then if the game direction is true, the current player is the current player -1 modded by the player IDs.length again. So if the game direction is false, you add 1 to the current player and then you mod it by the player IDs.length. And if it's true, then you subtract 1 and you mod it by the player IDs.length. And that's pretty much just going to figure out, that's just going to go through the list of players, like whichever order it's in. So like, let's say it's Adam, then Jake, then Sally. Then it's like, okay, we're skipping over Adam and going to Jake. And then like, if it was already going the other way, then it would skip whoever and then go to the correct player. And now the last thing that we need to do is check this one thing, which is if the current player is equal to -1 for whatever reason, then the current player is equal to the player IDs.length -1. So that takes care of that method. And actually we have one more thing to check for. If the card.getValue is a reverse card, then we're going to do the same thing. So you can just copy this, paste right here, and just say the game direction changed. And then the game direction I'm going to explain what that means. And then you're just going to do player IDs.length -1. So what this is, it's pretty much the equivalent of an XOR equals true. So if you've done gates and things like that, it's just going to flip every time without any branching or temporary variables. So if it's true, it's going to be false, and if it's false, it's going to be true. So that's just going to flip the game direction. That's all this does. And now the last thing we have to do for this method is just add a card to the stockpile. So we're just going to add the card. So that's going to wrap up this first long method for the game class. So please like and subscribe, and we're going to finish it up in the next video. Thanks.